And now for your listening pleasure, here's Pulizzi and Rose, covering the week of media, marketing, and digital content news. This Old Marketing. Take it away, boys.
Well, hello, my friends. This is This Old Marketing, proudly brought to you by the HubSpot Podcast Network, the business destination for audio. No, that's not right at all. It's the audio destination for business. Anyway, I'm Robert Rose, and welcome to episode number 404 for Friday, December 1st, 2023. And with me, as always, as he always is, my colleague, my friend, and a guy who is definitely not the John Oates to my Daryl Hall. Yes, I can't go for that. Mr. Joe Pulizzi.
No can do.
No can do.
No man-eater comments?
Just I mean, that's the whole thing, right? I mean, you know what's going on, yes, with Mr. Hall and Mr. Oates?
Yes. I saw that Daryl Hall had the restraining order against
That's
Mr.
correct.
Oates, and Mr. Oates,
we talked about this very thing on, I think it was 3 episodes ago, when we talked about selling catalogs, and artists selling catalogs and all of that stuff.
And what's happening? Oates wants to sell the catalog, but can't sell the catalog without Hall's permission, and Hall doesn't want.
Well, it's not true. That's the whole thing of it, right? So John, and I know quite little about this from the legal standpoint, so I may get some of this wrong, but as I understand it, he's got every right to sell his shares, and he probably needs and wants the dough. He wants to cash out. And so they had it sort of 50-50, basically, between the two of them for their catalog and what they wanted to sell. And so basically, Daryl just doesn't want another partner. He wants, for whatever reason, he wants to work with John on where they allow permission and where they don't allow permission. So it wouldn't be that he would be giving up his control. It would be that he would be actually working with someone he clearly doesn't want to work with. And so, whether that's because he gets to sort of steamroll John on all these decisions, and it's like, if it's a big company or an investment firm, he's not going to be able to do that, or some other reason, or just that he just doesn't want to work with anybody other than John is the reason that he files the restraining order, and basically says that John doesn't have permission. He's got to get, we have to go into this together to make these kinds of decisions. And so it'll be up to a judge, I guess, to decide, what's going to happen.
Think about it. I mean, just think about, not that would ever happen with us, but from our perspective, I mean, basically we own 50% of this show. Not that it's of any value.
I was just going to say
is half owned by Robert Rose Incorporated and half owned by Joe Pulizzi Incorporated. So, if I decided to sell my half for a nickel, you might be very upset about this.
I would be very well.
Upset about
there is but here's the thing. It seems so, and this gets right to the heart of thinking about when artists sell their catalog. It's a really good example, right? Because you sell half the show, and you could argue that somebody going away, one of us going away, would make the show half less valuable, right? And so I would be upset because the show would be less valuable because you weren't there, right? And you like, oh, I'm going to sell it and bring in another host, basically, to sit and talk with you. The show is less valuable as a result of that. But with a catalog of stuff that's already been done, well, it's kind of all you're doing is getting a new partner to make business decisions about how the product that's already made gets resold. And so I think it's a really interesting case, actually, because it'll be interesting to see how it all turns out, because my observation, I have no inside knowledge of this, but my observation is that Daryl is pretty circumspect about the stuff that gets commercialized of the Hall & Oates catalog.
Oh, I'm sure.
He's still out there making original music, and he's still out there trying to do, stuff live and playing with other artists.
Oats is in a desperate mode.
I would think it looks like it. That's what it looks like to me, is that Oats is like ready to just like cash out and retire and go sit on a beach somewhere and just sort of not deal anymore. So it's a fascinating.
Feel bad for Oats. I mean,
I do. I feel bad. Yeah, I feel bad for both of them,
especially
actually.
early days Hall and Oates. If you listen to I forgot the album's name with Sarah Smile on it, but if you listen to that, Oates is a lead singer on a lot of those songs.
That's right.
And then slowly as they go, he just goes into background. And then, of course, we grew up in the MTV days where it was Hall in the front and Oates in the back.
That's right. Yeah, that's exactly right.
And poor John.
Yeah. Yeah. John got a little bit forgotten, I think. I mean, John has always been.
I have a side question for you. You know how you made the little air snafu in the beginning in the introduction? Did you do that on purpose? Because this is episode 404.
I'm not saying.
You did.
I'm not saying.
And I have to thank you before we get into any other conversation.
Yeah.
This is my new set. I have a new set.
And it looks brilliant.
To you.
Yes.
So we talked about it, as people can see, the lighting is not quite perfect yet. I'm still working on the lighting, but I'll put in the show notes my setup. I promoted on my LinkedIn page, and I thanked you and Lee Judge, who were both very helpful. And finally I got on my butt and set up and got the whole thing, and I got the Sony cam going, and I feel pretty good about it. It
looks great. It looks absolutely fantastic. Beautiful, flawless skin. You look good in 4K, my friend.
I like how you can set the background to blurry a little bit, where you do the focus.
Yeah, that's all on the camera. I didn't believe that it was about, because if you go out and do the research, everybody goes, no, it's all about the camera. It's all about the camera. Webcams are just not there yet. The technology is just not there yet. You need a proper mirrorless DSLR camera. And I was like, really? I was so skeptical.
I'm like, because I had a top of the line webcam.
Yeah.
And you're like, as we've been talking about this for a year, folks.
Yeah.
And there's multiple people that came to me, and it's funny because Lee Judge at Content Marketing World comes up to me and he says, "Hey, Joe, you got to up your game, especially with Robert. Basically, you had the whole Monty going on." And I'm like, "No, really? I got the best webcam." And he's like, "Yes, that is the top of the line webcam, but it's not the Sony."
Yeah,
It's
true. I thought the same thing. And as soon as I put this thing together, it was like, so my wife's a photographer, and photographers have a thing, is basically they say it's all in the glass, right? It's all in the glass. It's all in the lens that you choose. The lens is the most important part of all of that. And it's so true. That's why getting that Sigma lens is, because the standard lens that the Sony DSLR camera comes with is a fine lens. It's fine, but you put that Sigma lens on, you can see the difference. You can really see the difference, and it's makes all the difference in the world.
It's almost like, until you notice something, I bought a white car, and then all of a sudden you notice white cars everywhere. It's the same thing with this. Now I look at other people's picture and I say,
and you can tell
they got to up they got to up their game. That's a horrible webcam.
You can totally tell. Yeah, you can totally tell.
Now I'm becoming one of those people. You've turned me into one of those people.
What are those people?
I don't know.
Tell me what those people are.
About how they look on camera.
Well, yeah. I mean, I'm getting old. I gotta take every
work whatever magic you can work.
This.
You don't just roll out of bed looking like this.
No, this doesn't just happen. It takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of special effects.
My goodness. So I do want to make a little comment, because we had to record multiple versions of this old marketing last week because of all the craziness at OpenAI. I don't know if we needed to go through it again, because I believe the last time we recorded, which was last Wednesday, that there were no new significant updates outside the fact that basically the board of OpenAI, who were the ones that fired Sam Altman and put out the sky is falling thing, and this is really, really serious. They're basically all gone. They've all been removed. So take that for what it is. And now Sam's back, and everything's okay now, right? Everything's
I think so. Normal. Yeah, I think so. Basically, the only other news that I saw, which was yesterday as we record this, was that Microsoft now has a non-voting board seat on
non-voting
a non-voting board seat. Yeah, that basically,
although
which means they're in the process of restructuring their corporate governance. And so I think there will be bigger restructuring of the corporation and the business to follow. I think you're going to see some interesting things come out of all of this, probably, which will indicate that they've I don't know if jettisoned is the right word, but basically evolved or changed or fundamentally altered that whole nonprofit controls the profit, controls the other holding company, control that weird sort of Byzantine sort of corporate structure that they had. I think they'll probably restructure that whole thing too.
I sent out my newsletter, the Orange Letter, this morning. Actually, I'm getting comments back, and I'm surprised by and I get it, because we're so inside baseball because we follow this stuff, but almost nobody knew that there was a nonprofit that started this whole thing in 2015, and the for-profit entity was built in 2019 by Sam Altman specifically because they felt they couldn't get enough resources and the servers and the tech and buy the researchers and the engineers so they could do all these things like ChatGPT.
That's right.
Plus. So it's just, I think a lot of people felt like, oh, that's kind of icky. I didn't know that was, so that's a.
Well, I did, and I wrote about this for my CMI piece this week, which is the thing that I think really people didn't know, even if you knew that there was a nonprofit attached to it, and how it started. What a lot of people didn't know is that the board that was assembled for the nonprofit controlled the for-profit. In other words, it was when they were, and they had no incentive for-profit ventures. In other words, there was no incentive for them to have a profitable company, even though they controlled the decisions that were made by the for-profit company. And so those two trains come at each other head to head this was inevitable. This was going to happen at some point because there was just no way that, you've got a CEO and employees who are being rewarded on the for-profit revenue, value of the company. And you've got a nonprofit board that controls everything that has no incentive at all for that. It's like that was just, it seems weird to me that they didn't either know or acknowledge that was going to be an issue, but of course it was going to be an issue.
Well, you don't know until you know, but
right. That's exactly right.
That's a Yogi Berra saying, I think. But it's just like they pulled the poison pill. We talked about it, whatever. I think last episode was, if a corporation doesn't want to have a hostile takeover, they do a poison pill, which is basically they give their current investors like really cheap shares so that the other hostile entity can't come in and buy up the other shares.
Yep.
It seems like that's what the board did. They're like, what can we do? The world is coming to an end. Sam is doing something that is against our mission. What do? We got to fire him.
That's right.
And I'm sure there was a better way to do it, but it was almost like there was a certain amount of fear.
Yep.
That's why, and as I talk about this at length in my newsletter, there's something that happened within the OpenAI research team that they hit something science fiction related here. They made some big.
Well, there's this hint of the Q thing, right?
Artificial general intelligence, and they're getting to that point, or they've gotten to that point.
Yeah. Well, there's that hint of this Q thing that apparently is out in the wild now, that Altman referred to in some speech or some meeting.
The
Q Star, I think it's called.
He made it. This was the October 23rd event or whatever that Sam Altman was at, and he said something about he pulled back the veil of ignorance. And now it's like, what am I watching? Is this Superman 3?
Yeah.
Is this
Lex Luthor?
That's exactly. No, I was thinking. Wait, was it 3? Which Richard Pryor was in?
Yeah, of course.
That's the one that I was thinking of, where the human and the man and the human and robot become one, and I'm like, oh god,
that's right. Yeah, there you go. Superman 3. We're living in Superman 3, and we are all Richard Pryor in that. Yeah, there you go.
I think Sam already has a computer chip inside.
Yeah. Now, speaking of movies, just very quickly before we get to the top of the show, I have to report back because I promised that I would report back. I have seen Two, I mean, I had seen other movies, just to be clear, Adam Sandler movies. I had seen 51st Dates before, which is really cute with Drew Barrymore, the whole thing. Not 51st Dates.
Yeah.
Wedding Singer. Wedding Singer was with
also
Drew Barrymore. Yeah.
Yes.
Oh yeah, I guess they both are, aren't they?
Yeah.
And so I watched Happy Gilmore and I watched Waterboy. I'm happy to report that Waterboy is definitely the better of the two.
I told you you'd like that one.
I know, it was cute. That's a cute movie, and you're right. Henry Winkler is awesome in that. I mean, Henry Winkler is awesome in everything, but he's really fun. It's a very cute movie. Happy Gilmore is a freaking train wreck. I don't understand how anybody likes that movie.
That was the movie that Adam Sandler was.
Well, here's what I think Happy Gilmore is. Happy Gilmore. I don't know if you noticed this, but as marketers, I mean, the first thing I thought of is, oh, this is totally a branded advertisement for Pepsi, for Heineken, Subway. I mean, everything. It's literally like the what is it? The Mike Myers when he basically does does the product placement.
Brings it up.
Yeah,
and he does that in Wayne's World.
Wayne's World, thank you. And basically it's like that. I mean, the way he's eating the Subway sandwich and the way that they drink the beer and the way that it's just like, oh, okay, yet another brand, So it's like, and the movie's like, whatever. It's just, I'm
proud of you for trying it. I know I had lots of people asking me, how's Robert doing with his Adam Sandler marathon?
Yeah.
I knew that Waterboy was going to hit home. Plus, you like football, and it's a great football. Especially when they tie in the ESPN breaks about.
Yes. Yes. So it's cute. It's really cute. It's a cute movie. I mean, it's the kind of movie that you could see it appealing to a young crowd for a long. It could become a classic, in that way, right? That you can. It's one of those movies you can always go back to and just sort of like put on and be. Happy Gilmore is I don't get it at all.
But now look back, look and see. So Adam.
But that's his whole Scooby Doo thing, right? The Happy Gilmore thing is
that's that one. So
yeah.
But he does movies with Drew Barrymore or Jennifer Aniston almost exclusively.
Yeah.
Almost exclusively.
Yeah.
Which is not a poor choice at all.
No, neither of those choices are bad.
We would love to have that choice if somebody wanted. If either one of those two people would like to come on and join us as a guest on this old marketing.
That would be lovely.
By the way, Drew Barrymore might, because she's got her whole line of everything going on right now. She's got the talk show. She's launching product.
Yeah,
very impressive.
Yeah. So all right, should we get to our show? Should we get to the actual show here? I mean, I guess we're into the actual show. 17 minutes in. The
show is the beginning. You have to include the beginning.
That's true. That is true. That is true. Well, we do have a wonderful show for you because it's been a really interesting week following all of the drama around basically all the OpenAI stuff. And it opens with, of course, Elon not being able to let anybody else have the headline. So, of course, he had to grab back the headlines at the New York Times event and told advertisers to go F themselves. We'll talk about that in a minute. Then we'll talk a little bit about the rapid rise of synthetic content, the idea of content uncreated by humans. We'll talk about how creators can actually now own their digital likeness and whether they actually need to go to extra steps to create their digital likeness. We'll talk about TikTok, how they're changing their mind. They said short videos, not so much. We want long videos now. And then if we have time, which we probably won't, we'll talk a little bit about how Google's going to have to pay up now in Canada for access to news. And then I'm going to rant a little bit about Google itself and the news publishers and how very much behind the scenes, it seems like they're going to shut down that whole consortium club sort of institute that they've created with publishers to talk about how they want to monetize advertising. And then your commentary, what is your commentary on?
I'm going to talk about Weebo in a Chinese, like the Chinese Twitter, if you will.
That's right.
And they made a decision, and I think it's really critical to what's going to happen in the United States, and I'm going to cover that.
Very nice. Very nice.
There you go.
There you go. Okay.
By the way, we should tell people, by the way, we're working really hard on our At This Old Marketing YouTube channel.
Yes.
You will see a lot of changes in the next couple months.
It's going to be fun.
They're going to be good changes. Make sure you go and subscribe on YouTube, This Old Marketing. You can, by the way, if you're listening to us, you can actually see us
Yeah.
You'd like to.
And Joe's fancy new setup. You can go see
my new
Joe's
digs.
fancy new setup.
My
Yeah.
orange shirt, my new digs.
Yeah. All good.
that
All good.
stuff. And
His cool moody lighting. It's really
I
awesome.
know it's not quite right, but I'm feeling good about it.
You should feel good about it.
I feel almost big time. Not
Lustrous,
as big time as you.
Lustrous 4K skin. That's all I'm going to say.
Oh man,
That sounded really weirdly pornographic there for a moment there. 4K skin, didn't it? Okay. Anyway, let's move along here. Let's move along here.
This is a family show, and
I
now
know.
back to and now let's talk about our first news item.
Yes. Speaking of 4K
Here
skin,
we go.
Elon Musk says, "Go F yourself" to advertisers leaving X. The photo that we'll post, obviously from TechCrunch, looks like he's got 4K skin. And the article opens up by saying, "Your move, Linda," said Elon, and said, "Go F yourself" to advertisers who recently paused spending on X after he endorsed an anti-Semitic conspiracy theory on the platform. On stage at the Dealbook conference, Andrew Ross Sorkin asked the ex-owner about these pauses in advertising, and Musk replied, "Don't advertise." And he said, "Wait a minute, what? You don't want them to advertise?" And he said, "Look, if somebody's going to try and blackmail me with advertising, blackmail me with money, go F yourself. Go F yourself." And then he waved out at the... It was pretty classic. I watched the video. It was pretty classic.
I haven't seen the video.
And then my favorite part is actually the go F yourself wasn't even nearly as interesting as what happened after. First of all, he goes, "Hi, Bob," waves out to the audience because Disney CEO Bob Iger was apparently at the event and may have been in the audience. Probably not, probably backstage, but nonetheless.
Yeah.
And then my favorite part, and they don't cover this in the coverage, was then he goes on to go, because the interviewer is clearly like at a loss for words. Like it's just clear. The interviewer is just like, I have no idea what to do here. So he said, "Really? You don't want them to, like, doesn't that like kill your company?" And Musk goes, "Well, we'll see what planet Earth has to say about that." It's just sure so classic
and he
Elon.
He probably just read the whole thing that came out about the 1.5 degrees Celsius increase, and so he probably thinks that the Earth is going to implode.
Yeah, and then of course today, Linda Yaccarino posted on X a whole basically endorsement of that whole idea, and it's not going very well for her in the retweet space. So yeah, it is.
Yeah,
it's. I mean, I think it all comes down to, I think his whole attitude here. I mean, it's really hard for me to glean what his long game is here, but or even if he has one. But it seems to me that he's moving exactly where you said he was going, which is, I'm trying to just basically break down the company to its bare bones, and I don't care how much money it makes. This is my plaything, and it's my toy, and I'm gonna do what I want.
I think it's a little bit more strategic, and we've talked about some of this. He wants to bring the valuation of the company down to such a point where he can buy back the debt holders for pennies on the dollar and get rid of them, because that's really what's holding up this whole thing. And we've talked at length, many episodes, about what's going on, where there's so much. Twitter is what they were valued at $44 billion when they took on all that debt, and now it's worth what? You can't even say it's worth $10 billion.
That's because
they've lost a good portion of their revenues, which were advertising. So I think they're all at a point. He's like, hey, let's just drive this thing down to nothing. He wants to buy the whole thing back so it can be his plaything, whether that becomes the payments app, everything app, whatever the case is. I think that's where he's at. This is very, very strategic. He loves in the media is covering like he's a loose cannon. He's lost it. He's insane. And that's exactly what he wants. But I think he's being very deliberate about this. It's just part.
Well, yeah. Let's draw a distinction though between deliberate and strategic. You know what I mean? So I think you're right. He is absolutely being deliberate about this and trying to bring the value to as close to zero as he can, so that basically, is it Morgan Stanley? I think it is. It's either Morgan Stanley or
it's one of them. I think it's one of them.
Yeah, one of them that holds the bulk is just going to have to get this off their balance sheet, and maybe he's trying to force them to get it off the balance sheet before the end of the year or something like that. But they need to get this debt, which is just crazy, So, and drawing the value even lower and lower and lower does that, of course. And at some point they have to pull the trigger, and then he can buy it back for, you know, pennies on the dollar, and then own the whole thing, which is what he clearly what he wants. The question is, it feels like it's a bit of a race, right? Which is, and it feels like he may be like accelerating that, you know, stepping on the gas a little bit, because you can see that the race is, you can't do it to the point where everybody leaves, right? In other words, if you, you can drive the value down to a certain level and basically, you know, have and buy it back for pennies on the dollar. But what are you buying at that point? Like if it's an empty room, then it really doesn't kind of matter. You know, you've got this wonderful technology infrastructure with nobody using it. So,
well, the one thing that I want to say about that, I've seen a lot. So I basically said, hey, I'm making my last tweet over here on X, and I moved over to Threads, and a lot of the people on my Threads, whatever you call a thread, whatever my thread tweet, whatever that thing is, a lot of people said, oh, there's nobody over there, and everybody's leaving the platform. I am
that's not true.
I'm amazed by the loyalty
of
a lot of these large creators and media sites that are still going all in, even more so because they see the opportunity when people are leaving. So don't think that it's a ghost town over on X. There's still a lot of people, a lot of influential
people. If you want to talk, you know,
content over there.
I 100% agree. If you're in the news space, you know, because honestly, you know, some of the things that I have seen is, I'm like, when you know, the OpenAI thing, certainly what's going on in Israel and Gaza, you know, if you're into
how important it is,
that, you can still see that it's a relevant platform for those kinds of topics, whether it's politics, whether it's news, or whether it's in some way some emotional, you know, sort of fight or you know, tension. And Threads is not that. Threads is much more where all of the business marketing / sort of people who look at social media in a much more quote unquote pleasant way are starting to collect. Threads is picking up. There's no doubt that Threads is picking up. I can see it. I can see it happening. I can feel it happening. And for the moment, it's very enjoyable. There's no ads, which is lovely.
It's not going to last being the nice version.
No, of course not. Of course not. It's going to, I mean, some of that stuff's going to bleed over, of course, 100%. Yeah.
But here's what I don't understand about Threads is, and I like it too. I agree with you. I think it's picking up steam. There's no doubt about it. And I went back on like, wow, look at all this engagement. It's really something.
Yeah.
But why they don't figure out the hashtag thing and prioritize news, and they could absolutely fill that void so that people that want to have that news experience can have it on Threads, because right now it's not built that way. I don't know why they aren't going that direction, because right now that's the opportunity sitting in front of Meta.
I think to your point, I think they have yet to figure out the consumer side, right? In other words, the consumer of content side. So if I just think about a celebrity for a moment, right? And if I'm a celebrity and I have millions of Twitter followers, millions of X followers, tens of millions of X followers, and I use that platform for my audience engagement, right? Just to talk to my followers, talk to my audiences, do the influencer thing, and do, you know, use it as sort of a quasi press release for my celebrityhood. Well, that's still the place to do that, because that's where all those consumers of content are. They're not on Threads yet. However, if they can figure out a way to get the people that are, because the same thing happens on Instagram, right? So Instagram has that same level of celebrity thing, but it's really about photos and imagery rather than text. So I think there's a bit of a friction there of getting the consumers of short form text news into the Threads idea. They're just not signing up, right? They're just, I think those consumers, people like, you know, for example, my wife doesn't create any content at all really on social media other than the occasional Facebook post, but she consumes a lot of social media on Instagram and on Twitter and on Facebook, of course, and hasn't signed up for Threads yet. And I asked her, I said, why haven't you done that? She's like, I don't know. I just haven't done it yet. I just haven't felt
it's not necessary.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So it's like who necessary
goes
to drink my own urine? No, I'm sorry. That's a
Dodgeball.
That's
Yeah,
a dodgeball.
That's a
reference,
dodgeball
yes.
reference. Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
It's a great. There's another great movie.
Yeah.
But you've
another
watched that one.
Oh, Dodgeball is a fantastic movie.
Because you're more into Vince Vaughn and Ben Stiller.
Well, there's so many great people in that. I love Dodgeball. You can dodge a wrench, you can dodge a ball. Speaking of dodging and speaking of not telling people to go F themselves, we should probably pay our bills with our beautiful, wonderful, handsome, gorgeous sponsors that we love so dearly. If anybody's on X and giving up their advertising platform on X, come on over to This Old Marketing, because this is the place.
Yeah,
for
we
it.
take anyone.
We will absolutely take your money.
Here we go.
Hey, did you know that HubSpot just launched an AI chatbot that helps you build awesome campaigns at scale with just a few prompts? Yeah, it's called Campaign Assistant, and it's a totally free-to-use AI tool that will transform the way you build marketing campaigns at scale. And the best part? Well, the best part is it works seamlessly with all of HubSpot's marketing and sales tools to scale your output across email, social, and more. So AI your way to the most effective campaigns yet at HubSpot.com/campaign-assistant. Can I tell you about a great podcast? It's called Inclusion in Marketing, and it's hosted by Sonia Thompson and brought to you by the HubSpot Podcast Network, the audio destination for business professionals. Inclusion in Marketing digs into important topics like belonging, customer experience, diversity, and how you can practice inclusive marketing authentically. One of the more awesome recent episodes featured a cool exploration into the meaning of belonging, all related to Beyoncé's Renaissance World Tour. Yeah, it was really interesting. So go find it and follow it. You'll find the Inclusion in Marketing podcast wherever you follow your favorite pods.
That's very peaceful. That was peaceful music.
Yeah, that's what I figured.
Like
I will tell you, that's one of my favorite things to do with the ads is to try and pick the music to go behind it, because it's fun.
It was soothing, and then the whole AI your way thing.
That's them again. That I will tell you, that's the HubSpot copywriters. I didn't make that up. I liked it.
By the way, for those of you that don't realize it, for the past couple months, we've been part of the HubSpot Podcast Network, and it's great. They're wonderful people, but we both had some issue. Can we say this? We're going to say it that every time you say it, you have to say the audio destination for business professionals. I don't think you have to say it. I think you just have to be it.
We'll. There you go. That
you dream it, you do it.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. That's right. That's a great way to put it. Yeah, I like that. We'll check. Yeah. Maybe we can check with mom and dad to make sure that we're allowed to not say it that way. But yeah, no, it takes time.
Hey, I don't know if they even notice what we're doing.
That's true. They probably don't pay any attention at all. We're trying to be good. We're trying to be proper.
It's been very nice. I've received a number of emails from people that show me their Spotify Wrapped.
Oh yeah,
we're one of the top.
That's nice.
That's very, very nice.
It's
and
really,
I always
really
like,
nice.
hey, look, you're the number one podcast I listen to with the Spotify Wrapped updates that they do for the end of the year, which are amazing. I'm not on Spotify, so I don't get any of that stuff. But it's
cool. I
thank them.
This year especially, they really outdid themselves with how much fun stuff that they included in. They have a town basically based on your listening where you should live, basically the music taste of and they match it to a city. It's really
What
cool.
is your city?
I haven't looked at mine yet. I've only seen others. I've only seen other people's. I have not. I've been on the road traveling the last couple of days, and so I haven't actually downloaded mine yet.
Okay, I would be very interested in that. But when people, so thank you for those people that were your number one source of listening. Dummery, I guess. I don't even know how to say it. I say thank you, and then I apologize at the same time, which I think is the right response.
No, that's exactly right. Yeah,
I think that's right.
We're sorry for you being you.
So we'll try to do better. Willing to work harder.
Yeah,
we're trying.
Right. All right, let's move to our next story here, which comes to us courtesy of a media operator. Again, fantastic newsletter if you don't subscribe to it. And the article is the rapid rise of synthetic content. And basically, and it's part of the newsletter, that's the headline. And it's the subject is really part of a story that is written around how AI generated content is here to stay. And it's a story. I mean, it opens up by saying, look, graduating college with a history degree in the slow growth years immediately after the Great Recession didn't leave me with a ton of prospects. It's all written in the first person from
Jacob
yeah,
Donnelly.
there you go,
Yeah,
Jacob. Yep.
absolutely.
Basically goes through and tells the story about how with Google, and it's really a story about how they did this experiment with Google and pulled together this synthetic content. And the way they did it was they basically pulled the competitor, their sitemap, from which is typically available, literally, with most modern content management systems, you can get to because they publish it for Google's sake. They publish it in many ways for Google. So it's an XML based sitemap. Then you can turn basically all of so that maps every URL into typically with article titles, because anybody practicing any good SEO uses the URL with the article title in there, and then basically fed that into AI and created 1,800 articles based on that sitemap. And then, so 18 months later, they have taken 3.5 million total traffic visits and 490,000 per month traffic from that particular competitor. And he's basically then goes on to talk about how this is all going to happen, right? This is already happening. It's going to happen
now. Yes.
And so all of this content is getting, I don't know if stolen is the right word, but certainly it's, and by the way, I started looking at this myself. I just sort of said, wow, I wonder how hard that is to do. And so I used one of the AI tools that I use, and did it to my side. I didn't want to do it to a competitor or to a site without. It feels a little icky to do it to somebody else, but I did it to my own site, pretending I was a competitor. Also because it was easy for me, because I know exactly where the XML sitemap is. I said, look at this, pull this, basically give me the list, formatted it for me, and give me. And it's pretty scary how easy and good it was to actually do all of that. And it would take work, right? It's not that you can just feed all that in and say, now spit out 1,800 articles. You have to sort of do it article by article by article, or at least, in groupings. But it's kind of scary how easy this would be to simply automate if I had any sort of programming knowledge at all. So,
and I think that's what they did when they go through it. And by the way, we'll put the link in the show notes, but if you click through on the tweet, the person that did this, and Jacob was reporting on it, basically goes, and I don't know if they're proud of it. I guess, like, look at, we ripped off 3.6 million sessions.
Yeah.
Boom. Off of our competitors that were going to them, and how easy it is. And basically what Jacob was talking about is Google has a problem right now.
Yeah.
This is a big Google issue. And the reason why he went back and said, hey, I graduated and I had a job in SEO, and it was really easy to be swarmy, if you will, or use black hat methods in search engines before Google did their Panda update.
That's right.
What year? Like 11? Or can't remember what year.
2011, I believe. Yeah.
And then that's when you couldn't do any of these weird. Well, now we're back at that pre-Panda update from Google, where you can steal somebody's titles, use some AI content, and boom, Google is going to reward you because you're using synthetic content and targeting keywords that your competitor. It's a big issue. Now, with Jacob, if you read the whole thing through, at the end of this article, Jacob talks about the fact that this is a short period of time where you can do this, because Google will figure it out. And
of course,
if you look at history, yes, they're going, but right now they haven't.
Yeah.
So the amount of businesses that are being launched and created, and strategies around just doing this AI content swap model, if you will, is amazing. And then does Google then just figure it out and then it's over? Kind of like the demand media of the day, when demand media was hot, because they figured out a way to do this 300 word content, and we'll do all the keywords, and it doesn't have to be really valuable, and you'll get ranked for it. And then all of a sudden Panda came around and done.
Yeah. You remember, I mean, demand media was a huge unicorn looking company, right? It was a company that was going to just completely revolutionize the way we did content in those days. And then Google went, nope,
Yeah.
And so it was, I mean, it lost. I want to say, I think we were doing the podcast when it finally went, and we talked about
They
it.
were still, they were still around at that time, but they
Yeah.
were waning. And
Yeah,
basically when they went public, they were at their highest level. And
that's
then the
right. And it
Panda
just fell
update,
off a cliff. Yeah. It just, their stuff fell off of a cliff, you know. And by the way, all the copycats, because there was a ton of copycats to demand media as well. So yeah, I think you're right. I think we'll see Google stem this, but Google has bigger problems than this even, right? But, you know, and I'll talk a little bit about it in my commentary, but Google right now has a really big issue that they have to solve, because search generally is broken, right? Search is getting worse and worse and worse, and people are turning to it. And I know this is a drop in the ocean right now, but it's a little bit like the sort of boiling frog thing, right? You just don't, it's happening slowly enough that we're not really seeing it. But you can see article after article now about how Google search, quite literally, if you go to Google search now and search, you'll get, if you've turned on the AI assistant, by the way, the first thing that's going to come up is the AI assistant at the top of the page, which I've got turned on and find interesting. I haven't. It's interesting to me how little I use it. The second thing is that in many cases you'll do a search and 12 of the 14 listings on the front page are ads, right? I mean, it feels a little bit like desperation right now in terms of what's going on from an advertising really perspective. And this, and so many people are now turning to either ChatGPT for searches, or they're going vertical, right? They're going into Amazon and searching for products. They're going to Kayak and searching for travel things. They're going to Google Maps and searching for directions, or Apple Maps and searching for directions. They're verticalizing their search because they know that what they're going to get out of Google isn't that great anymore. And so that's a real issue that they have to solve.
That is a huge issue, and I'm sure they're going crazy over it. It's funny. Over the holidays, I guess, extended holidays, one of our family member that's way younger than I am, so 20 years younger than I am, and we would be talking, and they would go and use search on their smartphones, and they would be using ChatGPT for everything.
Right.
And I'm like, where are you getting that? It's like, oh, ChatGPT. Like, they don't even think about going to Google anymore.
No, I know.
Everything for search is going to ChatGPT. And I'm like, that can't be just an odd occurrence. There has to be a lot of other people doing the same thing. I
have, and by the way, we should note that very quietly under the scenes, and we didn't cover it on the show, but quietly under the scenes, OpenAI has now launched audio, right? So you can actually talk to ChatGPT now on the mobile app, right? So you don't even have to type the question anymore. You can literally, almost, get it into a SIRI. I won't say it so that none of our devices go off, but you can actually ask the ChatGPT what it is you want to ask, and and I see it all the time with my non-technical, non-marketing industry friends. They literally just say, let's ask chat. They call it chat. Let's ask chat. And so they'll ask for an answer. And by the way, sometimes get a great answer, sometimes get an awful answer, but they're getting an answer, and and they're using that, not Google.
So just to wrap up this one, I know we're going along with this, but I think it's really important. Is in this article as well, there's some research that Jacob cites from Europol, which says by experts estimate that as much as 90% of online content will be synthetically created, AI generated by 26. And I think that number's low. I think that in 2.5 years, literally as a percentage, there's still going to be a lot of human driven content, but as a percentage, 99% of what we're going to see and be engaged around is going to be AI generated. And I don't think people see this wave coming. It's going to get crazy. And that's where I think the opportunity is for human creators. If you build an audience that knows, likes, and trusts you, that's still people. I think people are going to want this human connection. They're going to want to know that as a human being that they trust, they're getting their information from. I think that opportunity is right now, like to build those audiences right now, because I don't know in 2 years how easy that's going to be.
Yeah, I think I think you're probably right. Although I would say that it's interesting because what we're seeing is a little, and it may just be a blip or it may be sort of a bump in the ultimate road, or whatever metaphor you like. But what we're seeing is a bit of a backlash. And in the companies that we're seeing anyway deal with this, what we're seeing is the idea that the ultimate decision is, we're not going to use AI to create public facing content. We're going to use generative AI rather to either inform the content that humans are going to create and or to provide access to information, like, you literally using it to say, okay, here's our customer service, repository of manuals and how-tos and all that kind of stuff. Now let's use it to create a chat bot to be able to ask questions of that.
Yeah.
So basically creating an interactive sort of.
You're talking about, you're creating LLMs off of proprietary content
Correct.
that have already been created by you, that you have the copyright to.
Basically just access to knowledge, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
I totally agree with you, and that's happening. But I mean, you saw this week, which we didn't cover. I can put this in the show notes too. Sports Illustrated got caught using AI generated writers.
Yep.
Totally. I mean, what was that all about? They actually had a picture of the person and created bios for people that did not exist writing sports articles.
Yeah.
Sports Illustrated was one of the great brands.
I know.
And what are you doing?
I mean, there's no faster way than to destroy your trust and value with your audience than to do that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there you go.
All right. Moving on. And just a nice segue there to our next article that we'll cover very quickly here before we get to Rants and Raves, which is how creators can own their digital likeness. This article coming to us from the Published Press, which when you sent this over, I was like, oh, this is a really interesting little newsletter here. I had not heard of this newsletter.
They've been doing a very good job over there.
Yeah.
Colin and Samir, who are two big YouTubers.
Okay.
In the lifestyle and creator economy space, they've been publishing this for well over a year now. Really good stuff.
It's really good. I really enjoyed it and went over and subscribed to it. Anyway, so the creative moves to protect their AI likeness rights article within that newsletter says a song featuring AI generated versions of Drake and The Weeknd's voices went viral on TikTok and YouTube earlier this year, leading many in creative industries to ask, how can creators, artists, and actors control the use of their personal likeness as artificial intelligence tools become more and more popular? The generative AI firm Metaphysic, singular, believes that the solution isn't to ignore new technology. Rather, the company is helping talent secure personal data, file to copyright their likeness, and license their portfolio to third parties in order to keep up with AI innovation. And then basically the article goes on to make the case for data ownership and why you should be able to do that. And the CEO of Metaphysic basically says, well, in the next 10 years, we're going to see, 90% of AI generated content, to the stat you mentioned before, and basically say this is important for creators of all shapes and sizes to own their data. This gets to what we talked a little bit about when I sort of ranted about the results of the actors strike. And sort of the idea that they're going to need permission, and sort of suggested that this might become part of employment contracts, et cetera. Look, this is a very interesting business idea. I was actually going to go, I didn't get time to go check this out in depth and see what the process looks like and see what they actually do. But man, I can see, for anyone who is thinking about any sort of public facing creation idea, whether you're a creator and you're looking to be an entrepreneur and get into this space, or whether you think you're going to have a high profile enough view of yourself in whatever company you work for to need this could become a really interesting business model. I mean, I don't know what you think.
I think it's going to be huge, but I just don't know what it's going to look like.
Yeah.
Because you're going to have some repository of your digital assets. I don't know if that means, because you and I have had conversations about this, and we've talked to other creators that are like, I have 15 years of web content. All my there's ways. It's been a lot of companies in the IP space that have said, okay, here's your IP and here's how you can license it out. And media companies have been doing that forever. And now that's moving to just content creators. But now it's not just the content you create, it's you.
Yeah, that's right.
It's your digital, it's your audio, it's your facial reactions, it's everything. So how do you then license that out? And when I sign an agreement to work with a company, is it me plus all the other? Yes,
I think it is. I think it's going to get to that, right? I mean, so actors have been doing this for a long time. Like performers have been doing this for a long time, right? The name and likeness, I mean, we've talked about this with the college, college athletes, right? That can now do this, your name and likeness. And so this is literally, what is it? It's not NLI, it's NIL, right?
NIL, name, image, likeness.
Name, image, likeness. This is exactly that, but for basically an NIL agency for creators. And I think it's just a fascinating idea. I have to be honest, because I think this, I mean, it may end up being sort of a fad. It may end up being sort of the thing that was like, okay, really, do you really need to do this? Because really, you're just not that famous. But I think it's a real thing. I think it's a real, especially for those people who, when we, as you get higher and higher in an organization, and the organization wants to use your name and likeness in their content because you want to focus on the human, the authentic, the sort of differentiate yourself from the synthetic AI generated content, man, is this scarcity becomes valuable, and that scarcity becomes you. And so it's really interesting.
It's already being done in brand deals. So this is not a new thing. So you do a brand deal. It used to just be, hey, it's me. I'm doing stuff for you. But no, it's not. You use anything that I'm going, synthetic or not. So that's already going into the deals. I think where we're going to head, I think that if you sign a deal as your corporate marketer, let's say, you're going to have an NIL clause in that agreement, because if they use you as part of their human resources video or to attract new people or whatever, you're going to
launch a podcast with them, et cetera, et cetera.
You either give that licensing away and you're aware of it, or you get paid for that as well. It's going to get nuts. But we have to prepare for it, even on the corporate side.
I think creators should get ahead of this, and I don't even know this company. I don't know what they do. I don't know how it works, and I'm totally going to go explore it. And I promise to report back. But for right now, this is something that I really think that creators have to get ahead of. Get ahead of this, even if it doesn't turn out to be as big a thing as we think it might be.
This is, by the way, this is an idea that I'm sure somebody else is working on. But
there's plenty of people thinking.
No. This is something separate. I'm bringing up that if I was thinking about it for the funeral industry, believe it or not, because I thought that what would happen is that on somebody like, let's say you, not that you're going to die anytime soon, you're going to launch an LLM against you, and your instead of just having a funeral plot, you're going to have your Robert Rose. You're going to go on to the blockchain or online, and you'll be able to talk to Robert forever, because it's going to be you. So
that's creepy.
But I believe that's a thing.
I think
this is leading into that.
I think that's a thing. I absolutely think that's a thing, and I'm already creeped out. Yeah, I'm gonna launch that company, and you're gonna be my first customer. I see you on a YouTube video.
Family can visit.
You're wearing
Robert. You have a cowboy hat on. Right.
I see you doing a promo ad for this with like a top hat, like looking like Riff Raff from the from Rocky Horror, and going, "You can be alive forever with your tombstone placement of a video."
It's not that far off, and I think about it when I think about this. This is really going off the rails here, but like in Harry Potter, when you talk to one of the ghosts that's in the picture, I think that's going to be us.
Well, there's that movie.
Like we're going to be there. We're not living anymore. But
there's that movie where there's it's not a great movie. It's at the movie. I can't remember the name of it, where the wife dies, and then the husband downloads the wife's personality and memory, basically brain, into a android. And then you find out that the wife was actually murdered by the husband, and it's a creepy sort of mystery, but it's like that, right? Your brain gets stored, your emotions get stored, all your knowledge gets stored, and you can download it into an android. All right,
here we go.
Here we go. It's fantastic. Let's get to our rants and raves, shall we? Which is basically where we go off on a little bit of a rant or a little bit of a rave, where Joe and I makes us feel like either Daryl Hall or John Oates, depending on what it is.
Nobody wants to feel like John Oates.
Yeah,
I feel bad for John.
Yeah, I know.
I do.
It's yeah.
Although I got to tell you, Hall and Oates in concert, one of the best concerts I've ever been to.
Yeah, good stuff.
Wonderful. Yeah. And of course, Daryl Hall's in the front, John's in the back, but that's okay.
Yeah, good stuff. Yeah. That's good stuff. All right, let's. Would you like to go first, or shall I go first?
Let me go first. Mine's really quick. Let me put this up on the screen so you can see it. But this is an interesting site called The Rest of World, but they're talking about Chinese social media site Weibo, which I'm only familiar, Robert, about Weebo just from us covering it and other sites like that. But what they made the decision to do, China actually, is making this. I don't know all the details of it, but I'm assuming this is being forced on them a little bit by the Chinese government. But Weibo is making the decision that nobody can have anonymous accounts anymore. So you actually have to verify your identity as a human being to do this. And the reason why, and by the way, there's a lot of content creators on Weebo right now that are leaving the platform because of this, because they are on there specifically because they don't want to be known. And you and I both know a lot of people that do that. They have secondary accounts, or there's a lot of big creators out there that don't go by their real name and nobody know who they are, especially some of the comedy accounts that are duping off of another person. I think this is coming to the United States, North America, Europe. Not anytime soon, but in the next few years, I think this verifiable identity is going to be such a thing. Like, do we know who this person is? Is this a real person? Is this a deep fake? The whole thing where the social media sites like Meta, Instagram, I don't know what X is going to do, but I think YouTube would do it. I think Google will do it. I think they're going to put the foot down and say, you have to verify your identity. And it's going to make a lot of people upset, but I really feel it's coming. So.
You think so, huh?
I do.
I don't know.
They'd have to have a very good reason. I think there's some journalists. Of course, we've seen this in media forever, right? There's a lot of journalists that go by different names that you know who they are because they need to protect themselves,
right? Or
they would get into serious trouble. I think you'd have to make a very strong case for that. So I think a lot of people are going to be like, "Oh, you don't have a good enough case for anonymity. You're going to have to be verifiable."
Yeah, I think you're going to see, the argument against this on the sort of the sanity side of the argument against this is that, just to your point, that it becomes much more difficult to retain anonymity for whistleblowers and for those that, that are in countries where they could be identified, not the least of which could be China in so many ways. And I totally hear that argument, and I wonder if it becomes where there's two levels of the network, right? Where there is the, in other words, it becomes where you can see things. This is a bad metaphor, but just to make the metaphor as easy as I possibly can, where you see a tab where it's basically everybody and people who can be anonymous, right? So you have some expectation of much more free-flowing knowledge, but also anonymity. And then you have sort of the quote-unquote trusted tab, or the trusted network, where everybody has an identity. And so it's the kind of thing where you've got the ability to sign up anonymously, but if you want to appear, if you at all want to appear in the quote-unquote trusted network, you have to identify yourself, which would allow for the anonymity to come through, and then trusted people to either believe that and pull it through as part of their, identity. In other words, because if you think about the anonymous post or the anonymous breaking news or whatever is only made real when someone trusted actually posts it or reposts it. Because in many cases it's like, well, then if it's anonymous, I don't know who that is. And yes, I see the photo and that could be faked, or yes, I see the news and the link, but that could be faked. All of that. It is when someone trusted actually reposts it and says, this is the thing we need to be paying attention to. that you go, okay, so you could allow that sort of pool of content to swim anonymously below and then have the trusted layer above it.
I don't disagree with you. And there
Yeah.
are a lot of reasons why social media sites should have verifiable identity, especially if we talk about, I mean, Meta and Facebook and the whole thing of underage people on the site. That's a big issue in and of itself.
Yeah.
So there's that. But I think that in the very near future, and I don't want to get too science fiction-y, but there's going to be this, are you a human or are you synthetic?
Yeah.
Because there's going to be so many accounts out there that have defined a niche in a content area or marketing or whatever that aren't going to be human.
Right. That's right.
And there's going to be, there's going to be like a book burning type episode around that.
Yeah.
Not that I'm any good at predictions, but I just feel like that's going to come. I've read way too many science fiction movies.
Right.
Books, and I think that's where we're going. So,
yeah. No, I think it's exactly right.
What do you got for yours?
Very quickly here. Basically, I have got, so the article that we'll link to is from Marketing Brew. It's something that's not getting a lot of coverage, although sort of the correlation news is basically getting covered, which is that Google, the news item that we might have talked about it was that Google has now made an agreement with the Canadian government to actually pay for news. We'll see if Meta comes along with that, now that they've sort of knocked down one giant, well, maybe they'll knock down another. We'll see if that actually happens. But more importantly, is that, and we reported it on this show, I don't know how long ago, when it launched, was that Google's working group for news publishers could get shut down. And so the story here from Marketing Brew is that, as it says in the thing, Google wants advertisers and publishers to buy into its plan for all these things. And I've talked about this before, right? Sort of deprecating the third-party cookie and all of the ways that they're handling advertising and pulling news and all that sort of stuff. They formed this group, the publishers, to basically come together and talk about solutions for how they would actually do that. And what has happened apparently is that they've kicked out a couple of them, and basically, they had major publishers like Washington Post, they had the New York Times, they had Fox News, they had Disney, Paramount, Hearst, Condé Nast, other publishing platforms, and basically a couple of them have left. Namely, I think, if I was reading this correctly, it was Fox News or Fox, and a couple of others, maybe USA Today. Anyway, a couple of other publishers have basically left the group, and basically they're not getting along. And so Google is basically saying, look, it's maybe time to disband this whole thing. And I think it's very interesting to me how Google and their relationship with publishers, especially news publishers, has become so fraught with tension. This includes the relationships between publishers and Meta, publishers and basically every social media platform out there, and how it's really becoming, the platforms don't care. The platforms just don't care that much anymore because there's not a lot of value in having a deep working relationship with these publishers. And it speaks to where the news publisher business model is. It speaks to where news and publishers are trusted by the public, and how democratized this has become, where news really isn't broken anymore on these news sites. It's rather broken on TikTok, or it's broken by, just to our point, anonymous whistleblowers on social media platforms. So you wonder, where all of this goes, especially as it relates to the business model of publishers. And I just can't help to think that this isn't good for news publishers, for sure. And I don't have any inside information in terms of what actually is going on here, but it just strikes me that both sides of this are walking away from this sort of short-sighted. Because again, if you go back to the fact that Google's now going to pay the Canadian publishers, and I guess the way it's going to work is that Canada is going to divide up all that money against small publishers, and basically based on your employment, how many people you employ, you're going to get a share of this I think it's $100 million a year that Google's going to pay to have access to the news. which of course benefits the big publishers and not the small publishers. You know,
Yeah.
for small publishers, it's going to be a drop in the bucket. For big publishers, it's going to be a drop in the bucket. But now all of a sudden they have, you know, they're all friends again. No, not really. So it feels very much to me like the record companies and MP3s, where they were clasping and grasping onto these old business models and ideas and trying anything they could to sort of find ways to make money on this that were just ultimately going to be organically phased out. So I don't know where it all goes from here, but I just know that this doesn't spell good news for publishers.
No, I think that I think it goes back to what we talked about last week. I'd like to see more of these traditional publishers change their business models to go after like the naming, like we talked about naming rights like some significant private funding, instead of having to go to Google and bow before Google and say, please give us money.
Yeah, that's right.
Because we lost our business model when we let you in. Not that we had any choice necessarily to do that, but that's basically what happened.
Exactly.
With a lot of these with news publishers. I'm not talking about publishers that focus on a particular industry or a B2B publisher. Those, I think a lot of the cases, those business models are doing really, really well. It's the ones that are incentivized to actually cover breaking news. That's right. That's a broken business model right now.
Yeah, that's exactly right. That's exactly right. So that's what I got.
There we go.
All right.
Another fantastic episode.
I can't believe it's already over. I can't believe it's already done.
Yes. It's like that hour just goes by so quickly.
Where are you this week? What's going on?
We're actually gonna go see some friends in the Orlando area. So we're gonna go to your favorite state.
Woo. Yeah, I love it. Especially that Orlando area. Yeah.
We'll definitely be interested in the Cleveland Browns quarterback situation this weekend.
Who are they going to play? I mean, are you going to sign up and maybe get a roster?
It's really unfortunate because honestly, the last game, DTR was our rookie quarterback from UCLA, was actually having a fine game. He just started to get rhythm and then got knocked out of the game.
Yeah.
And then the game went downhill from that. It was really, really close.
Is he hurt? Is he hurt so bad that he can't play, or?
He's right now, as we record this on Thursday, he's in concussion protocol. And if he does not come out of concussion protocol,
if he hasn't come
Joe Flacco, former Ravens Super Bowl MVP Joe Flacco, will be our starting.
He ain't coming out of concussion protocol. I can tell you that right now. If he's not out by today, which is we're recording this on Thursday,
I think we're going to see Joe Flacco.
You're going to see Joe Flacco. Joe Flacco's great.
We're just hoping. We don't need anything great, Joe.
No,
we just need don't throw interceptions and don't fumble the ball.
That's right.
I think we can win games like that.
Stay healthy.
Yeah. And your Cowboys are looking great. So
Cowboys are looking good. We'll see. They got a big game this week tonight, actually, as we record this with the Seattle Seahawks. So by the time you all hear this, I'm in a bad mood or a good mood.
But I have to tell you that every game that the Cowboys win, my youngest son, Adam, who you know really well, he always says, tell Mr. Robert that the Cowboys haven't beat a winning team yet.
It's not their fault.
Yet.
It's not their fault.
I know.
By the time they play them, by the time they play these, if they'd played the Commanders in week 2, they would have been playing a 2-0 team. If they would have played the Seahawks 3 weeks ago, they'd be playing a 6-3 team. I mean, it's not their fault that the teams that they play keep losing.
Hey, I didn't make the comment. Yeah. My son did. Talk to my son about it. He's just making a case for it.
Yeah. So, how are those Browns doing? That's all.
Anyways, there we go.
All right. There we go. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us this weekend. As we always say, we will see you again next week. And before we see you again next week, just remember, everybody, it's your story to tell. Tell it well. See you next week on This Old Marketing.